Guys, about 40 seconds. Twenty seconds. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's roll it out, everybody. Good morning. All right, here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Driscoll. Come on. All right, gonna be on the same theme as we were on last week with the setting the tone, finding our heart rates at certain percentages. ERG will turn off in the second half of the ride, and we're trying to find those same heart rates without any focus on power. After the fact, we're going to see how that lines up with the power. So, welcome, George. George, your first Zwift workout. Gonna talk about that seat height. Your seat is really low, buddy. Slow that cadence down a little bit. Just warming up. My Juan Pelota shirt on. Everybody know the Juan Pelota story? You know who Juan Pelota is? Training with this guy years ago, when Strava first came out.
Hang on, Jim. Juan Pelota.
Juan Pelota.
Juan Pelota.
Strava
Juan
first
Nuevo.
came out.
Juan Nuevo, okay?
Training with this guy, I'm training with a guy when Strava first came out. And he's telling me, he's like, man, this guy Juan Pelota on Strava. I follow on Strava. Got like every KOM. Kicking ass. Keeps telling me about Juan Pelota. I was like, yeah, great. I don't care. I don't know what the Strava thing is. So then he's like, I'm looking where this guy's riding. I think it's Lance Armstrong. So he wrote the guy on Strava. He said, hey, are you Lance? Confirmed identity. Lance's alias on Strava was Juan Pelota. One ball. Back it up. We all know Lance Armstrong had cancer. He had a testicle removed. Hence, nickname Juan Pelota, the alias. So there you go. I got that shirt at the bike shop Lance owns in Austin, Mellow Johnny's. Little tidbit for your Thursday. There you go. Go tell your friends.
You have your yellow wristband with, what was it, One Love or something? What was it called?
Live strong.
Live Strong. Yeah.
I wear one on each wrist. All right, guys, just get the legs moving. Get in some 30-second pickups here coming up in about a minute and a half. Start getting those legs rolling. Don't worry about that yet. We got a pretty long warm up on this one. We'll hit some higher intensity stuff on these 30-second pickups. Once we get into the main set, nothing too crazy, but it's some good focused heart rate power work, hence the name. So you're nice and light on those pedals. Make sure you're watching those knees. Knees are driving straight up and down. Let's talk about IT band issues, right? Got IT band issues. Glutes are probably a little weak, or they're not activating. Stress is falling on the joints, the hip, the knee, the ankle. When that stress is on the joints are coming out of alignment, causing greater tension on those tissues between the joints, tension that's not meant to be there. So your knee is falling in because your glutes are weak. It's stressing that IT band. You're going to feel tension in that IT band. So on the bike, we find ways to subconsciously engage those glutes, strengthen the glutes. So when we go onto the run, got a nice strong tuchus, take a brunt of the load, most of the load. First way we do that is think about the knee drive, straight up and down, no wobble in those knees. Here we go. Pick up the cadence in 3, 2, 1. Intensity comes up to 85%. Bring the cadence into the high 80s, low 90 RPMs. 30 seconds here. Look at your left knee, straight down, straight up. Look at your right knee, straight down, straight up. 2, 1, nice and easy, back it down. So even though we're riding now, we are promoting good muscular use in the swim and the run. You can learn to engage the core, the glutes, move our body forward on the bike with those muscles. 3, 2, 1. We're going to have a greater tendency to do it when we're swimming and running. So let's do it right. Get the correct muscles working now, so we're as strong as we can be across all 3 disciplines. Look at that left knee, straight up and down, like pistons of an engine. 3, 2, 1. Good. In this in between, slow your cadence a little bit. Get nice and recovered. And we're going to bring the cadence up again here in 10 seconds. We're going to come up to that 85% again. Cadence in the low 90s. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Nice and light on your feet. Thinking about that knee drive. Two, 1. Back it down. All right, for the next one, we're going to focus on that stability in the saddle. No bouncing, no swaying. Just a good, solid contact on that saddle. 2, 1. Bring the effort up to 90%. Cadence in the mid 90s. Upper body's relaxed and all that weight is back. Right? If you press forward, you're leaning into those bars too much, whether you're on a road bike or a TT bike, you're gonna be putting a lot of stress on the quads, the knees. 2, 1, the shins. If we can keep that weight back in the saddle, weight over, center of gravity over that bottom bracket. Bottom bracket is what connects the right pedal crank and the left crank. Bottom bracket connects that. We want the weight over the bottom bracket. With good stability on the saddle. 2, 1. Cadence in the mid 90s. Really melt into your saddle. Upper body's relaxed. You have enough grip on the bars to keep good control of the bike, but you're not death gripping it. You're not granny going to the supermarket on a Sunday afternoon. She's white knuckling that steering wheel. That's not us. We're relaxed. Drop your shoulders, soften your elbows, wiggle your fingers. And we can sit up. If you really want to feel it, sit up, melt into the saddle, weight back, right? Weight back. We go into this pickup, keep that weight back, and get into your riding position. Another way to subconsciously engage those glutes. Ten seconds. Come on. Cadence in the mid-90s. We'll bump up the effort one more time in 2, 1. We'll back it down. We got one more round. We'll bump up the effort to 95%. Highest power output of the day is coming up on the next 3. All right, here we go. Start bringing your cadence up now. 3, 2, 1. All right, now we're focused on keeping that weight back and driving those knees straight up and down while we relax the lower leg. Release your calf, wiggle your toes, relax your ankle. The knee is generating that momentum. Cadence in the low 100s. 3, 2, 1. Good. Nice and easy, nice and relaxed. Feel that weight. If you need a reminder, sit up, melt into the saddle, feel that weight back, and then get into your riding position with that weight back. All right, drive your knees, bring that cadence up, relax that lower leg. 2, 1, let's go. Relax your face, relax your shoulders, soften your elbows, wiggle your fingers. Relax your breath. Three, 2, good, back it down. All right, one more. Bring that cadence up. Wiggle your toes, relax your ankle, drive your knees. 2, 1. No bouncing in that saddle. Relax the upper body, drop your shoulders. Good, we're looking good, guys. The more relaxed we can get that foot, the more efficient that pedal stroke's gonna be. 2, 1, good, back it down. 3.5 minutes, easy.
So Jimmy, let's go through. What do you want to do on these 10-minute efforts? You want to have a feeling of what, 7 on an 8 or an 8 on a rate of perceived exertion, just nice and relaxed, something you can hold for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, not racing anybody, not going crazy, just staying within yourself and staying within your zones. You don't want to be beating last week's power and heart rate. Am I correct?
Yeah, so what we're going to do here is, hang on. We're going to start at 70%, just like last week. About your Ironman race pace effort. You can hold this all day. You can hold this for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, right? 70% effort, but on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 4 to 5 with how fit we are. All right, you can hold it forever. We're going to set our race pace cadence somewhere in the 75 to 80 range. All right, we don't want to burn too many matches with too high of a cadence aerobically, or burn too many muscular matches with too low of a cadence. The cadence is in the 75 to 80 range. And we're just going to follow the ERG here for 10 minutes at 70%. 4 to 5 minutes in, we're going to look at that heart rate. It should stabilize at our 70% heart rate. So we get a gauge. Oh, okay, that's my 70%. My power is 200. My heart rate's 135. After 10 minutes, we go right into an 80% effort. A couple minutes in, we'll see that heart rate respond and dial into our 80% heart rate. This is all ERG on. And we finish off with 5 minutes at 90%. Same thing. The whole way through, the cadence stays 75 to 80. If you're on your TT bike, you're in that TT position as much as you can.
So when as coaches, we analyze these files, you want the two to compare, heart rate and power. And when it jumps up to 80%, it wants a little bit more heart rate. 90%, a little bit more heart rate. No spiking, no stopping, starting, up and down. Just needs to be level all the way through. Find out where your level is. Come race day, when you come on the run, you're not going to be looking for excuses. You didn't overcook the bike.
And the fitter we get, the more stable that heart rate is. Let's take George, for example. George Asher, welcome, buddy. His first ride. 2, 1. ERG's on. 70%. So we're going to get a good, stable gauge of what that heart rate is at 70%, because that power is not bouncing. You don't have to think about it. You just know a couple minutes in, let's give it 5, 6 minutes just to be safe. That heart rate will stabilize at this effort. But as I was saying, someone who's newer to cycling, newer to endurance sport, that heart rate might not stabilize because we got work to do on our aerobic fitness. Fitter we get, the more it dials into a specific effort. So the first round, we get a good number because we're riding off ERG. Like I was saying, we know, okay, 200 watts, we're at 135 beats per minute. So when we go into the second round, ERG is going to come off, turn off, and we're just going to dial in based on heart rate, based on what we set in the first round. The 70%, that heart rate's probably still coming up for most of us. That's why I want to give it 5 to 6 minutes, Rick. Right? You don't take off from a runway and just are immediately at altitude. You're cruising altitude. You got to build to it, right? Swear, in another life, I was a pilot, buddy. I can pull off a flight reference like that. And I want your race pace cadence, because like I was saying earlier, if your cadence is a little low, that heart rate's going to be a little lower. If your heart rate's a little high, if your cadence is high, the heart rate's going to be higher. I want a good gauge of a race pace effort on these. Race pace cadence is 75 to 80. If you don't have cadence, every time that left knee drives down, we're going to count for 10 seconds. Then we'll multiply it by 6. Let's do that starting in 2, 1, go. Stop. Multiply it by 6. You're watching me, I'm at a 78 cadence right now. My cadence meter broke on my bike. I haven't replaced it yet. Actually, it fell off when I was riding outdoors. I don't know where the hell it went. But this is what we talk about every time. Know the feel, right? Don't have cadence. But I said, okay, tell myself, find that race pace cadence. And immediately I went to 78. Just knowing the feel. The heart rate might still be coming up. Some of you guys have stabilized. Let's give it a couple more minutes. Well, while we're pedaling in this couple minutes, let's start at the toes and move up. Relax your toes, wiggle your toes. Relax your calf. Think about it on the left foot, the left calf. Nice fluid, efficient pedal stroke by releasing the tension in that foot, releasing the tension in that calf. Same thing on the right side. Wiggle the toe, release the calf. It's a good learning for the swim as well. So many times since swimming, I have athletes stop. I got a calf cramp. Every time you push off the wall, you turn that calf on, right? And that pointed toe position is where it's likely to cramp. If you don't relax the foot, relax the calf after that push off, and you keep it turned on, that's where that cramp comes from. And just like in running and getting those glutes activated, we can teach the body the pathways in the lower leg for the swim. You ever see a mermaid's tail or a merman's tail? It's not stiff. As it gets to the end, it gets more and more fluid. All right, good. So check that heart rate now. 6 minutes in. Most of us is probably stabilized. And I want you to make note, what's the 70% heart rate?
How many people in races have you seen that overcook the bike, go too hard, too early, heart rate up, smashing big gears up a hill, and then come on the run? They got their hands on their hips and they're puffing and blowing and walking and looking for excuses. Oh, he stopped. I'm going to stop too. I've seen it so many times. Overcooking. Too hard, too early. There's medication for that, by the way, too. blue stuff.
Always keeping it real. No, that's true. There's a good saying: bike for show, run for dough. Spend all this money, all this time, bike equipment, getting more dynamic, looking faster. You get on, you just want to go. You want to let it rip. You got the sexy bike. Got the sexy kit. Got my calf sleeves on. My aero helmet. Let me go as hard as I possibly can.
Not only all the equipment, all your time, but all the personal stuff, all the balance in your life gets when you're training for Ironman and half Ironman. You have no balance in your life. Bye, honey. I'm going to go for a 6-hour ride. I'll see you at 5 o'clock. And the wife's sitting there and she goes, hey, you go to Costco and pick up a chicken and wash the minivan. That's what you should be doing.
Sounds like my Saturday, bud. So we don't use all that sexy equipment, that time training to just pin it as hard as we can. We use it to increase fitness, increase efficiency. So at these efforts, this Ironman effort, you know what it is, you stick to it without overcooking it, like Chris is saying, and you feel great coming on the run, which is where you win the dough because everybody else is wilting. Pay attention. Where are we at? Where's that heart rate? Where's that power? Because we're going to up it to 80% in 10 seconds. But just like Rick taking off, it's going to take us a few minutes to get the cruising altitude. 2, 1. Keep that cadence right there. Got 10 minutes here again. So what was your heart rate? Might be a couple beats, right? Might be a couple beats variation in that 70%. For example, I was 123, bouncing between 123 and 125, right? Let's give ourselves 4 to 5 minutes to find that 80% heart rate, cadence 75 to 80. Emily, what do you see?
Good focus. We shouldn't be like having to really work super hard here. Should still be able to
80%.
talk.
You look at 80% effort, what does that align with race-wise? Like, what would you think?
Half
This-
Ironman.
Half Ironman effort. In comparison to an Ironman, oh man, it's only 13 miles. 13 miles is a long way to run, guys. The same thing, we got to stick to our numbers. And then within each, we focus on the process. Drive the knee down as we relax the lower leg. Knee goes straight down and it floats straight up. No bowing out, no knocking in. So focus on your left knee. Drive it down, float it up. As that lower leg relaxes and you wiggle those left toes to release the foot. You're not constantly wiggling them. Just a check-in to help you relax that foot. Let's count that left knee. Every time it drives straight down, 40 pedal strokes. Count to yourself. Go.
Last week on Friday morning, I was coaching at El Segundo. One of the athletes who's actually on here right now, he had written down 70, 80, 90%. He knew his heart rate and his power all at the same time. And I spoke to Anthony Ross, the famous Anthony Ross. He doesn't even have to look. He knows exactly within 1 or 2 points where his heart rate is. But you just get that over time. That takes a lot of time.
All right, go over to the right knee. Drive it down, relax your lower leg. 40 pedal strokes. Count to yourself. Let's go. Good. All right, Eli, what do you got?
Sorry. So I'm focusing on my core right now. And what I want to remind people about is that we have those abdominal muscles, keeping our core stable, trying to prevent rocking on the bike. But you also have to be able to breathe using your diaphragm. Completely different muscle group. Play with your breathing and notice, are you huffing and puffing? Or can you take slower, deeper breaths and maybe you'll see your heart rate come down a little bit.
Hey, is that core the same as muffin top? Is it the same thing? My little muffin top right here? That's your core, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. O'Driscoll. Piece of work,
Muffin
O'Driscoll.
power. All right, so look at the heart rate right now, guys. It should be stabilized at your 80% effort. So my threshold heart rate is about 170, right? 10% of 170 is 17. So my 70% heart rate, I told you, is 123 to 125. We jumped up 10% in power. My threshold, my heart rate now is 138 to 140. 17 watts, 17 beats. About 10% of my threshold. but it's not necessarily true for everybody. Everybody's different. But you're not looking like coming up 2 to 3 beats when you jump 10% in power. It's going to come up a decent amount. But we all have our own specific numbers. Cadence is still 75 to 80. Let's go back to that left knee. Focus on driving it down. And then we float it straight up the back. We don't yank it up. Down, up, down, up. Drive it down, float it up. .40 pedal strokes, count to yourself as you drive that knee down in the front. Float it up in the back, left side. Let's go. Over to the right, same thing, count to yourself. 40 pedal strokes, down and up. Let's go. All right, we're gonna go up to 90%. 3, 2, 1. Keep the cadence. 5 minutes at 90%. We'll take it 1 minute at a time. Three to 4 minutes in, we'll check that heart rate. So I hope you made note of your 80% heart rate. Now we're going to focus on opposite legs like we always do. Drive the knee down, float the opposite knee up. Drive your left knee down, float your right knee up while we stay stable in that saddle. 40 pedal strokes. Left knee down, right knee up. Let's go. Good. Drive the right knee down. Float the left knee up. 40 pedal strokes. Count to yourself. Let's go. Good. Focus on that knee drive. You find that cadence has fallen off at all. Pretend the lower leg is not even there. Visualize the knee driving that pedal. So we'll do that on the left knee. 40 pedal strokes. The lower leg is not there. You're driving the pedal with the knee. 40. Think about that. Let's go. Over to the right. Drive the pedal with the knee. 30 pedal strokes. Let's go. All right, in 30 seconds, ERG is going to turn off. Make note of your 90% heart rate right now. You want to be in the big ring in the front. You can switch the gears of the cassette in the back. But we're riding to our 70% heart rate. 3, 2, 1. So make it a little easier in the back. And just like Captain Rick, he doesn't just go from flying altitude to landing. He's got to slowly bring it down while keeping moving forward, right? He doesn't just slam on the brakes and land. You keep the pedals turning as you slowly bring that heart rate down to your 70% heart rate. I don't care about power. I want you to watch the heart rate. We don't soft pedal. We just let it come down. 2, 3, maybe 4 minutes in, you should find that 70% that we established in the first 10 minutes with the ERG on. Now you're under your own power to manipulate that heart rate accordingly. But it takes practice. The fitter we are, the quicker the heart rate falls to where we need it. Like I said, we don't back off completely. You got your running average going on under your real-time power on the screen for most of us. For some reason, you couldn't get in the workout, turn ERG off and watch that heart rate. But for those of us in the workout, you see that real-time average. It shouldn't be at 20% of threshold. My real-time average right now is 225 watts. I'm just riding off a feel as that heart rate slowly comes down. And once I find that 70% heart rate, I dial into it. And you just watch the heart rate. I don't care about the power. We want to look after the fact and see if it's like a blind taste test. Without you focused on power, only looking at heart rate, where does that power end up? Eli, what do you got?
My heart rate is back. Took about 2 minutes for me to get back to my 70% heart rate. My power is maybe 2 watts off, but feeling good. Breathing should be relaxed, should be able to just focus in on your pedaling now. Everything's relaxed.
Is this something, Eli, you could hold all day? Is this your pace for a full?
All day.
All day. It's like
All day.
when Blue coaches at the track, okay, guys, I want you to run 2 easy laps. And easy laps are a conversational pace where you can hold a conversation. Should be that easy.
That's a good
Right
point
on.
that I was gonna make, is that we go to the gym. Talk about George. Look at those legs. He's no stranger to the gym, right? This guy knows the gym. You go on and you put in 70% for the first round, might feel a little heavy, might feel a little tough. Just warming up. Then you go, you max out the effort. Then you finish with the superset at 70% again. That 70% feels too easy because you just overloaded the system. But it's still 70%. Think about that first round. It's still your abilities, still within your ability range. You didn't all of a sudden become, what was it, Bruce Banner? You didn't become the Incredible Hulk and have this extreme change in strength and ability. It is what it is. But just because it feels easy right now because we overloaded doesn't mean you made gains within the course of 20 minutes. They come. Ultimately, we want more power at the same effort, which is why we train. Why we train the way we do. But right now, you're totally dialed into that 70% heart rate. Cadence 75 to 80. And we change the gears in the back to keep the cadence 75 to 80. And maybe lighten the load a little bit if we need to focus on that heart rate, keeping it in range.
CJ, stay still, man. You're bouncing all over the place. Stay still. Keep that upper body still. I'm watching you, dude. Head still.
All right, so we're 7 minutes in. You should be dialed into that 70%. Cadence should feel natural. Not fighting too low of a cadence. Spinning too high. You don't have cadence on your bike. Let's count that right knee every time it drives down. Count it for 10 seconds. Ready? Let's go. Stop. Watching me, I'm still at 78. Heart rate's right at 70%. And we're focused on the little things. Drop your jaw, relax your jaw. Like Eli said, big diaphragm breaths. The body follows the breath. Use the example all the time. You're running and there's somebody behind you huffing and puffing. Not only is it annoying, but they're spiking that heart rate. You can slow the heart rate by focusing on that breath. Big, deep, relaxed breaths. The body relaxes. The heart relaxes. You become more efficient inside and out. We did a good, tough workout on Tuesday. We got to balance the intensity that we throw out week to week to week, right? If we do a hard workout on the bike on Tuesday, we know we got some hard run and swim workouts. We can't bury ourselves with intensity every single session when we're in this phase of training. Got to work that foundation, work the strength, work the base, gain the fitness, gain that resiliency without digging a huge hole. So you get off this ride and you think, man, hour 80 minutes, 82 minutes, but I still got some left in the tank. That's what we want. All right, 15 seconds. We're going to go up to your 80% heart rate, right? You might need to add a gear in the back. You're still in the big ring in the front. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we don't go right there. We slowly build it up, guys. Add a gear, cadence 75 to 80. Once you hit that cruising altitude at 80%, we hone in on it. Might take 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Be patient with it. But if you're adding watts, at that 80% feel, the heart will respond. And we're warmed up now, so it should respond a little quicker. I want to make sure we're dropping that heel at the front of our pedal stroke, guys. No pointing your toes. No matter how much I focus on it, and we talk about it, I still see some athletes pointing their toes as they pedal. Remember, ankles relaxed, heel drops. Furthering help us engage those glutes. We're pointing the toe. We're turning on the front of the leg. And if we think about the swim stroke, right? Let's think about the swim stroke. If we recover dropping our elbow and we're lazy in our recovery, that's going to be the same way we're going to pull through the water, right? So if we're just flopping that arm, elbows dropping on the recovery, closing the armpit, that's how we're going to pull. But if we reinforce good habits on the recovery with a nice open armpit, high elbow, as we enter the water, it's going to be the same type of pull, right? High elbow, open armpit, enter the water, high elbow, open armpit. Cycling is no different. We're dropping the heel at the front, pulling it under. It's going to be a nice relaxed float up the back in that similar position, keeping that hip open. But if we're pointing our toe in the front of the pedal stroke, see me pointing my toe? How is it coming up the back of the pedal stroke? In that same position, which further puts more stress on our quad and our hip. So we want to drop the heel, pull it under, relax that foot up, and it stays in that open hip position. All right, we're 80% heart rate. Don't pay attention to power. And if you're doing this workout after the fact, you're doing it on your own, you should have clicked ERG off when I said. And you're paying attention to my instructions. You're not paying attention to what the Training Peak workout says. I'm making some changes on the fly here based on what I'm seeing with my people. We really need to get a grasp for that heart rate and the effort at the specific heart rates before we overcook the effort on a session like this. We overcooked that effort on Tuesday, not today. All right, 30 seconds, we'll come back to 70% heart rate. So I want to get to 70%. And we're going to play around with some things cadence-wise to see how the heart rate responds. But 75 to 80 cadence for now. Let's bring that heart rate down in 3, 2, 1. To a nice gentle landing at 70%. Bring it down. Might have to take a gear off the cassette. Maybe 2 gears off the cassette, whatever you got to do to lighten the load a little bit while keeping that cadence 75 to 80. Eli, what am I missing? Besides a few brain cells.
I think you got it covered. One other thing that I like to do, which I can do on the train, or I can't do it out on the road, obviously, is I like to close my eyes, remove all the data, and see if I can feel that heart rate. Feel it in my breathing. And then do it for maybe 10 or 15 seconds, open my eyes and see where I'm at. Develop more of a feel for this as opposed to a reliance on the numbers. What if your heart rate monitor craps out on you?
All right, so we all should be at 70% by now, right, Eli? We're at 70% heart rate yet? Let's do that. Let's everybody close your eyes. 30 seconds at the 70% effort and get the feel. 2, 1, close your eyes. I'll keep track of the time. Don't peek. All right, open your eyes. Look right at your heart rate. Where is it? Did it come up? Did it come down? Is it right where it should be? Did you closing your eyes? Did you get impatient and say, "Oh, I got to push a little harder. I'm not confident in this feel. I think it's dropping off too much." If so, bring it back where it should be. All right, remind yourself, relax those shoulders, Kuno. Kuno's so relaxed, he's sleeping on the bike. Jeez. Well, Kuno just made a good point without even knowing it. Everybody look at Kathy. Stay in that position, Kathy. Stay right there. Don't move. Stay there. Here's Kuno, right? Why is she doing this? She's not sleeping. We know that. All right, you can look up. Smile at everybody. Come on, smile, wave. Hi, blow a kiss. Blow a kiss. There you go. Okay. She does that because when she's in that TT position, the back of the neck gets tired. Right? Your head weighs how much? Emily, how much does your head weigh? Come on. Isn't there a movie called 9 pounds or something? 15 pounds? I don't know. Your head's like a bowling ball. Let's just say what Driscoll had.
More, Jimmy. I think yours could be up to 15, 16.
Mine's big because there's so much in it. I was about to make the opposite argument about you. Your head weighs a lot and your neck muscles aren't adapted to the stress of holding it up in that TT position. Which is why, as we get into this phase of training, we need to spend more time in that TT position to strengthen those neck muscles to hold that noggin up. Forget what I said going in this interval about cadence changes. We're going to keep it right here. I need to work on the feel. I need us to work on the feel at race pace cadence over anything. So you're at your 70% heart rate, race pace cadence. Learning the feel of the effort, and then within that, we're focused on the little things. We relax our toes, release our ankle, relax our calf. Our knees are driving straight down, floating straight up. They're floating through the top of the pedal stroke. Our heel is pulling under the bottom. We have good stability in our saddle. As the knee drives down, you're dropping that heel, pulling that heel under, floating the foot up, floating the knee through the top. That's a full pedal stroke. Float the knee through, drive the knee down, pull the heel under, float the foot up. Let's think about that full pedal stroke on your left side. From the knees standpoint, float the knee through, drive the knee down, pull the heel / knee under the bottom, release and float the knee up. I always talk about passive and active power. Passive power is the back and top of the pedal stroke. Active power is down and under. Passive power, you're floating the knee up and through the top. Active power, you're driving the knee down and pulling under the bottom. Let's think about that on the left leg. For 40 pedal strokes, full pedal stroke, focused on the knee. Let's go. Good. Go over to the right side, drive the knee down, pull under, float the knee up, float the knee through the top. 40 pedal strokes on the right. Let's go. Good. Now bounce back and forth. Right knee, left knee, right leg, left leg. Full pedal stroke on each side. And notice how when you focus on that full pedal stroke, right leg, left leg, how they complement each other. As the knee's driving down, the opposite knee's floating up. As you're pulling under, the opposite knee is floating over. It's like each side has its own spotter at the gym, built-in spotter, helping through the different spots in the pedal stroke. This is how we can get away with one leg being slightly weaker than the other or less proprioceptive because we have the other leg helping it around. We want each side to be just as efficient, but if there's a lack of inefficiency, the other leg will help it out. All right, let's go up to 90%. 3, 2, 1. 90% heart rate, not power. And we don't pin it to get there. Find that race pace cadence. The heart rate will respond. And based on what we did in the first round, you should know that 90% heart rate. Maybe you have to add 1 gear to the cassette. Maybe you have to add 2. Maybe you have to add 3. I want that cadence in the 75 to 80 still as that heart rate comes up. Heart rate's probably still climbing. It's fine. Maybe it's stabilized. Once you find that 90% heart rate, I want you to stay in there. Two minutes in, you're probably pretty close, if not there by now. Let's relax that knee. Relax that hip flexor as it comes up the back of the pedal stroke. Now we're starting to fatigue a little bit. The wrong muscles might be starting to turn on. We're going to spend extra time focusing on how we're moving in order to move the correct way and not to put too much load on muscles that weren't meant to absorb that load. Starting with the hips. Relax those hip flexors. Float the knees up. Left knee. Float it up for 40 paddle strokes. Take the stress out of that hip flexor right in here. Relax it as the knee floats up. 40 pedal strokes. Let's go. Good. Over to the right side. Same thing. 40 pedal strokes on the right. Float that knee up. Release that right hip. Let's go.
Hydrate.
Huh?
Hydrate.
Hydrate.
Drink.
Oh, I forgot our drinking game was supposed to happen today. Damn. All right, 10 seconds. ERG is going to turn on. I'll tell you why. Here we go. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. ERG's on. If you're riding on your own, turn ERG on. 70%.
Jimmy, couple of questions. When do you...
Hang on. Hold those questions.
All right.
So here, I'm just going to lay out this 10 minutes and then you will talk. So here I want ERG on. I didn't do that so you don't have to think. I did it because I want to see when you're at your 70% power at the end of a workout where you're fatigued, 4, 5, 6 minutes in, where is that heart rate based on where we felt the power being at that heart rate established at the beginning, right? So I want you to notice what fatigue does to that heart rate at the same percentage power, which is something we have to make note of on race day. Our power might not be as high at the starting 70% heart rate as it is at the ending 70% heart rate, which is the same. But our body doesn't know what our power's doing. Our body only knows what the effort is telling it, which shows up in heart rate. So cadence 75 to 80. And as we stabilize, that heart rate comes down a little bit. I want you to notice how much the heart rate, if any, has changed at the 70% power. Because if that heart rate's elevated at 70%, it just shows us how important paying attention to heart rate is and not being so affected by what the power is telling us. Because we got to run 6, 13, 26 miles off this ride. And we're overcooking that heart rate because our ego is getting the best of us. Because the power is not telling us what we want to see. We're just dooming ourselves for a long run. All right, O'Driscoll, go.
I got 2 races to think about. Oceanside and also Morro Bay coming up next week. At what time during the start of the ride do you start looking at all your power and your heart rate? Remember, Oceanside, you get out of the ocean, pretty cold, run to your bike, jump on the bike, climb a hill. Morro Bay, going to be freezing cold. You're going to take 10, 15 minutes to warm up. What?
Think about Captain Rick. Everybody use Captain Rick. Good question, Chris. Captain Rick is your example. How long does it take from takeoff to cruising altitude? Right? 10, 15. Depends on how far you're going, right? And how high you want to go. 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes before that little bell goes off and you can open your laptop. No, that's 10,000 feet. But either way, it takes a while to get the cruising altitude. Uh-oh, Rick's unmuting. Rick, keep pedaling. Don't worry, I'll talk for you. Just keep pedaling.
No, I just want to say that when we're warming up the engines to take off, we're not allowed to take off if the engines aren't warm. So you
Well, there you
don't
go.
want to peg it right away when you're cold. Just take your time, let things warm up, and then push up the power.
Really well said. That's great. Like before you even get on the plane, those engines are warming up. So Coach Chris makes a great point. We don't gotta go get it right on and think we're gonna be there. You let it come to you. Build into the effort. Build into the heart rate. Don't focus right on power right away. And eventually you get there once you loosen up and get warm on the bike. Same thing goes for the run. Leslie asked what the difference should be now versus the first round. I don't know. It's all dependent on your fitness. Leslie's extremely fit. So she's right back to her 70% heart rate right now within a couple beats. But we're not riding off a heart rate here. We're riding off of power because I want you to see the difference. You're not hitting the down arrow. Bring the heart rate into range.
Now, this is totally different for a sprint and an Olympic. For a sprint, you just go all out for an hour. For Olympic, you have to be a little bit more careful.
Well, it's like Rick flying to Vegas versus flying to Amsterdam, right? He's going to have a quicker build to cruising altitude because cruising altitude comes a little faster, being a lower elevation, I would think. You're going harder in those distances, but the distance isn't as long. So you get up there quicker. You're not swimming 2.4 miles coming out to the bike. You're swimming 400 meters to 1,500 meters sprint to Olympic. So you have a little more gas in the tank getting on the bike. You don't need to spend as much time building into the effort.
You know, someone asked me the other day, I see all this banter between you and Jim. Do you two like each other? The answer is absolutely not. He was very, very mean to me when he was coaching me back in the 60s, 70s. Very mean. And that's why we don't like each other, right, Jim?
It's a hate-hate relationship, you know? Some people say it's love-hate. Hate-hate. All right, Eli, give me your thoughts. We got 3 minutes to go. This is your last chance to air how unimpressed you are with the athletes.
No, everybody's doing great. I'm noticing my own heart rate now in this last set. And about 5 minutes in, I was about 8 beats up from my previous 70%. And now it's still coming down though. So there is some recovery during this 10 minutes. Notice that it's still settling, but slightly elevated. You know, we did an hour and 20 minutes worth of work. There's going to be a cumulative effect from doing that kind of work.
we got to think about this type of ride on the trainer. It's like a ride like we did in like Kona, right? Kona's dead air, hot, humid, very little airflow at times. That heart rate elevates. We have low, even if you have a fan on, you're not gaining the type of cooling that you gain on the road when you're creating that forward momentum. The air is naturally cooling you. Trainer is the same way. Your heart rate might be a little elevated because it's just dead air for most of us. So I don't want you to freak out. But we know our zones. And what will respond on race day is the power. We got to know the heart rate zones. Go write them down. 130, 140, 150, whatever it is, at the 70, 80, 90% effort. Because we're going to keep doing this type of ride on Thursdays. I have a lot of tricks up my sleeves. I want to see over time how that heart rate and power respond. There it is. So Driscoll has this written down. How his heart rate and power respond, or ours respond, to the training stress. And like I said, the goal, if you're at 120 beats, 200 watts now at 70%, in 2 months, to be 120 beats, 220, 230 watts. So the heart rates will stay the same. It's the power that goes up at the heart rates. All right, good work, guys. 2, 1, just spin it out nice and easy. You guys are off the workout now, so if there's any type of hill, you're gonna have to switch that gearing, but take a couple minutes, spin it out. Amazing work, guys. Go write that down. Like I said, we're putting good muscular stress on the system without overcooking it, because we got to make sure we're not spiking too much intensity out of one day and just piling intensity on day after day, because that's going to leave us in a fatigue hole. Well-balanced approach, working on the right things, is going to leave us extremely ready and prepared to take on race day to the greatest of our ability. So amazing work, guys. Spin it out for a couple minutes, nice and easy. That's it on our end. Have a
Jimmy,
great
thank
weekend.
you. Great job,
Yeah,
Jim. Amazing coaching,
buddy.
dude. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Well done.
Appreciate that, guys. Hopefully you're getting a lot out of these. If you are, just I like the notes. Thanks. Keep them coming. Tell your coaches you like this kind of stuff, and keeps us motivated to keep doing it. So love you guys. Bye. Talk to you soon.